Hey guys, so continuing from last week, this episode starts off with a conversation between Yo and Lyserg. And the one thing I will give credit to the reboot in manga is I feel there is a little bit more emotional subtlety and maturity to how they handle to how Yo and Lyserg handle their current circumstances compared to what happened in the original anime, where Lyserg was already completely brainwashed and practically begging Yo to join the X-Laws at every turn. Like, he was practically saying, join us, join us, join us, we can be together. Like, that was basically Lyserg in a nutshell in the original anime. So I like how there is a little bit more to, like, that kind of... There's a little bit more to their relationship even after Lyserg joined. I also admit that this episode does a slightly better job in making Lyserg's relationship with the X-Laws, or in this case, Team X3, quite a bit more sympathetic compared to the original anime. As you can see in that brief flashback, Team X3 generally seem to care about him. And generally think his kindness is basically something that the X-Laws need more than anything else. The only thing I still do stand by, though, is that Lyserg's relationship with Marco is still as bad, if not worse, than it was in the original anime. And people have already said this. Like, I know his reason for being in the series is to act as kind of a buffer, so to speak, for Lyserg's development. But as I've also said, Marco being the leader of the group also kind of gives sort of this weird bad impression of the X-Laws right out of the gate, because I feel it makes everything Marco does kind of makes the X-Laws feel like the most dated part of the series, as they are a trope I've seen done a lot better nowadays. But you can tell there were that a lot of what makes up the X-Laws as a whole are kind of like the earliest concept, this idea of a group that believes in absolute justice and that ends justify the means kind of idea. But also being the earliest concept, the flaws in execution show a lot more just pretty much within Marco and within Jean and whatnot. The only thing I will offer, though, is that the reboot also makes Jean and kinda Team X3 specifically do come across as slightly more sympathetic, slightly more sympathetic compared to their original anime counterparts, where honestly they didn't. Looking back, even in the original anime, they didn't have much of an identity. With that said, I want to touch up on pacing and overall production value in this week's episode, because it's something I've been thinking about for a while now, but the past couple episodes, and this one included, have kind of made me look back on earlier episodes, and confirms for me that the production of Shaman King 2021 as a whole was basically like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, in the sense where they had to throw a lot of the earlier material under the bus in order to make a lot of the later stuff look as good as it did, because production value of the episodes ever since we entered the tournament have gotten better and better overall, and is definitely showing more in episodes like this. The only downside being is, compared to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and what Bones did, I feel Bridge made a lot more awkward decisions along the way to even get to this point, where the art, the animation, just the overall production value just feels better, just feels more like better, I guess. So it's kind of a pick your poison thing. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer they sacrifice that first section, or would you prefer that be consistent all around kind of thing? But yeah, this episode just went all out in showing once again how ruthless Hao really is, and just how much of a complete polar opposite he is to Yo. Like, Hao was just massacred the X-Laws and the X-Laws in this episode, and enjoying every minute of it. This is the episode that kind of proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that Hao is completely devoid of kindness, empathy, and just anything that pretty much anything that would make a person like compassionate. But it's also one of those episodes that makes you wonder how the X-Laws ever thought they could defeat Hao to begin with, or even who can. Like, Hao barely needed to expend any Furyoku, not only in order to defeat like Team X3, but the fact that even after being hit by an oxygen bomb, he still survived. Like, what chances does Yo have? And even Yo himself seemed to realize this just from how frustrated he was. But the experience of seeing how fight was also kind of a dark reminder to him of how much How is the complete antithesis to everything he represents. And I think what really angered Yo more in this episode is how someone like that even exists. How someone like that, someone who's basically testing everything he believes in, even exists. Like how can such a callous and evil human being exist in this world? Like, it's in a lot of ways, even though How could be considered a little bit of a cliche villain, it is kind of pushing Yo into this corner of how is it that everything I've believed in, everything I've tried to believe, everything I've believed in about a peaceful world is all being tested by this single person kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it's kind of interesting in that regard. On the other side of that coin, though, this also openly exposed just how detached and calculating the X-Laws themselves are by throwing, because by virtue of X3 throwing each of their lives away for the greater goal, which should be admirable, and again, when it comes to X3, that's definitely the case, as X3 definitely proved to be more sympathetic, the most sympathetic members of the group. But it's one of those things where also, even though X3 are the most admirable members of the group, their methods are still in some ways the more callous part of how they operate. And yeah, obviously we learned that air is the source of the Spirit of Fire's intermediary, which anyone who knows basic chemistry could definitely figure it out. But just learning that fact alone, again, makes How the most indestructible shaman in existence. Like, if How can literally harness the air people breathe in order to summon the Spirit of Fire, and combine that with his demonstration after it was defeated by such a method, by just robbing the oxygen in the air, what exactly are his limitations? Like, How has no limitation. He has no. There are very few ways in which you can spin, in which you can show. There's very few ways in which you can ask yourself, what ways can he even be defeated? Because it kind of seems a little hopeless right now. And yeah, it's been a while since I've read the manga, so I kind of forgot how they defeated him. But yeah, it's like, what are the ways to do this? Like, it seems impossible. Of course, we also get introduced to the Goth Trio, or Hanagumi as they're called in this episode. And honestly, this is going to be one of the bigger disappointments in the reboot to me, because it might be an unpopular take, but I honestly loved them in the original anime, and to my recollection of reading the manga, they don't have as big a role in the story, which means if anyone who who watched this episode, saw them, liked their character design, and were hoping to see more of them and see them get a standout moment in the reboot, then I wouldn't count on it too much, which again is just disappointing in the sense where they also just had much more personality in the original, whereas here they're just like a group of goth punk chicks. But yeah, that's all I got for this review, guys. Enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, as Crunchyroll, and be sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.